AITA for refusing to take down a joke sign at my wedding that ended up offending my brother and his wife. My wife and I just got married 2 weeks ago. We planned this wedding for over a year, and while we try to keep it relatively small, around 80 people, we wanted to add some personal touches and humor to the day. We're both kind of sarcastic, love inside jokes, and our friends are all used to that. We thought we'd reflect that in the wedding vibe, too. One of the things we did was put up little signs on the reception tables, some sweet, some funny. Most were general things like, love is patient, love is also about who controls the thermostat, or marriage is finding someone who still loves you after they've seen you sick, gross, and hangry. Stuff like that. Now, here's the part where things went sideways. One of the signs, actually placed near the bar area, read, "Choose wisely." Look what happened to Ryan, with a cartoon of a terrified groom being dragged down the aisle. For context, Ryan is my older brother. He got married 3 years ago to his now wife, Sarah, and everyone in the family knows that Sarah can be intense. She's highly opinionated, gets into frequent arguments over trivial things, and tends to micromanage everything from vacation plans to dinner menus. Ryan used to be a pretty chill, fun-loving guy, but over the years, he's become kind of withdrawn. He barely jokes around anymore, doesn't come out for drinks with friends, and even skipped our annual family lake trip last year because Sarah said it was a waste of time. This "Choose Wisely" sign was a running joke among our friend group, since they all knew Ryan pre-Sarah. It was always said in good humor, like, "Man, remember fun Ryan before he became a houseplant?" Ryan would sometimes even laugh along with it. Well, apparently, wedding jokes hit differently. At the reception, Sarah saw the sign and was visibly upset. She said it was deeply inappropriate and an attack on her marriage. She pulled Ryan aside, and they left the reception early. I didn't even realize they were gone until one of my cousins told me. Later that night, I got a furious text from Sarah saying I had humiliated them in front of everyone. Ryan didn't text me at all, which was more disappointing than the message from her. The next day, my mom called and said I needed to apologize and take the signs down if I ever posted wedding photos with them. She said it was petty and immature and that I embarrassed the family. My dad, on the other hand, thought it was hilarious and said Sarah needs to loosen up. I told my mom I wasn't going to apologize for a joke that wasn't even directly insulting. It didn't name Sarah, didn't mention their marriage, and frankly, Ryan has laughed at way worse. But then my sister weighed in and said that I was being willfully ignorant, and I knew the joke was about Sarah. She said it wasn't fair to make a public joke at the expense of a couple that clearly has issues, and I should have known they wouldn't take it well. She compared it to giving a best man speech full of passive-aggressive digs. Now, here's where I might be the asshole. I doubled down. I posted the photo of the sign on social media in a wedding photo dump. Not as the first photo or anything. It was like photo number 18 of 30. But still, Sarah saw it and lost it again. She messaged my wife, saying we were both petty and immature and that we clearly didn't respect their marriage. Ryan unfollowed both of us on Instagram. My wife says I should just take the photo down and move on, that it's not worth the drama. But I kind of feel like if I cave now, I'm saying the joke was malicious when it wasn't. It was one sign among dozens. Most people found it funny. Nobody else seemed offended. Even our officiant took a picture of it and said it was clever. So now my family's divided. My dad and a few cousins say it was funny and that Sarah needs to get over herself. My mom and sister think I was out of line and intentionally poked the bear. Ryan hasn't spoken to me since the wedding. I didn't want to humiliate anyone. I just wanted to have a fun, light-hearted wedding that reflected our humor. But maybe I should have considered how something like that would land in a family setting. So, AITA for refusing to take down the joke sign and for not apologizing to my brother and his wife. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for choosing to not give my sister a large sum of money, even though she's going through a rough time. So, here's the situation. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and my younger sister, who is 29, has always been a bit of a wild card in our family. She's the youngest, and my parents, especially our mom, have always been super protective of her. It's been clear to me for years that she gets a lot more leeway than the rest of us when it comes to mistakes or poor decisions. For context, I've always been the responsible one, stable job, always on time with bills, and I keep my personal life fairly private. My sister, on the other hand, has always been more carefree. She's lived in several cities, bounced between jobs, and has had a few relationships that, to put it bluntly, were disasters. But for some reason, everyone in the family, mainly our mom, seems to think she should be excused for all of her actions because she's been through a lot and she's still figuring it out. I get that people go through rough patches, but it feels like she's been given a free pass for everything. A few months ago, she reached out to me for help. She had gotten into a car accident, which wasn't her fault, but the medical bills and the damage to her car were putting her in financial trouble. I'm not one to let family down, so I did what I thought was the right thing. I helped her out. I gave her $3,000 to cover the bills and get her car repaired. I didn't expect to be paid back immediately, but I made it clear that I would like her to pay me back eventually because I was working hard to save up for some personal goals and future investments. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, and she calls me in tears saying she's in another financial bind. Apparently, she was let go from her most recent job and hasn't been able to find another one, and now she can't pay rent. She said she was about to get evicted and needed $10,000 to cover the rent and other bills. She said she'd figure out afterward, but she sounded desperate. Now, this is where the problem lies. I'm not heartless, and I understand that she's going through a rough time, but I've seen this same cycle repeat multiple times over the years. She gets into trouble, reaches out to family for help, and then somehow she's back in the same position a few months later. I've been there for her every time, and while I want to help her, I'm not sure I should continue enabling this behavior. I'm also dealing with my own financial goals, and while I'm doing okay, I can't afford to give away $10,000 without severely affecting my future plans. I told her that I could help her with a smaller amount, but I just couldn't commit to such a large sum. I suggested she look into other options like asking our parents or seeking out some local government aid programs. I even offered to help her apply for those programs if she wanted. She wasn't happy with this response. She told me I was being selfish, that I was only thinking about myself, and that I was the only person she could rely on. She said I was betraying her, especially after I had helped her before, and that I should step up like a real brother would. Our mom called me shortly afterward, also upset, saying that I should have helped her out, that family always helps each other, and that I was being too harsh on my sister. She even said that I had more than enough money and that I should just give her the money. I explained that I couldn't afford to give away such a large amount, and that I didn't want to just throw money at her problems. I want her to learn to be more financially responsible and to stop relying on others to bail her out. I also mentioned that helping her out again would just continue the cycle of her making bad choices, and I didn't want to contribute to that. After that, things got tense. My sister hasn't spoken to me much, and my mom keeps trying to convince me to change my mind. My other siblings are split. Some say I did the right thing, while others think I should have just helped her out. I feel like I'm stuck in the middle, and I'm really starting to question whether I did the wrong thing. I know I probably sound harsh, but I really feel like this is an ongoing problem. I don't want to be a lifelong safety net for her when she's making decisions that keep her in this kind of situation. At the same time, I don't want to just ignore my family when they're in need. But I also don't want to sacrifice my own financial stability to keep bailing my sister out. So, AITA for choosing to not give her the $10,000, even though she's going through a rough time? Am I being too harsh in expecting her to take responsibility for her own life? AITA for calling out my best friend for getting engaged to my ex after less than a year? So, this is a pretty complicated situation, and I'm really torn about whether I did the right thing. I, 27F, was with my ex, 28M, for about 5 years, and we broke up about 18 months ago. Our relationship was complicated but intense. We met in college, and everything seemed perfect at first. Over time, though, we both started to realize that we had a lot of differences especially about our futures. I was always more career-oriented, while he was more focused on just chilling and enjoying life, which meant we were often on different pages. We broke up, but it wasn't dramatic. There was no cheating or anything like that. It was just a mutual decision to go our separate ways. At the time, I thought it was for the best. I thought I could move on and find someone better suited to me. A few months after we broke up, I found out he was dating my best friend, Lily, 26F. I didn't know how to feel about it at first. Lily had always known about my relationship, and she and I had always been close. She was the one who listened to me vent about my ex's flaws and everything we went through together. I even vented to her about the breakup itself. She seemed supportive, but she also was really sympathetic to him when things ended, telling me he was really heartbroken. So, when I found out they were dating, I was honestly confused, hurt, and a little betrayed. At first, I didn't confront her about it. I tried to be the bigger person and just move on. But as time went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It just didn't sit right with me. It wasn't just that they were dating, it was how quickly it seemed to happen. They started dating almost immediately after my ex and I split up, and within months, they were inseparable. I started hearing rumors that they were talking about moving in together and getting serious. It felt like everything was happening so fast. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, and my ex and Lily invited me to dinner to catch up. I was a little hesitant, but agreed to go, wanting to keep the peace and not make a scene. During dinner, they casually dropped the bombshell that they were engaged. My ex looked so happy, and Lily had this big smile on her face as she showed me the ring. I froze. I felt my heart sink, and I couldn't hide my shock. I'm not proud of what happened next, but I couldn't hold back. I straight up asked them how long they had been engaged, and if they realized how soon all of this was happening after my breakup with him. They seemed caught off guard by my question. Lily tried to brush it off, saying that they were in love and that it just felt right. My ex added that sometimes life moves quickly, and they both believed they were meant to be together. I, however, couldn't help but feel like they were disrespecting me and my past relationship. I told them that I thought it was weird that they barely gave it time after my breakup, and how it seemed a bit inappropriate considering how close I had been to both of them. I also told Lily that I felt like she'd crossed a line by getting involved with him so soon after we split, especially since she'd always been so supportive of me during the relationship. I pointed out how they'd always been friends, but now it seemed like they were trying to erase the history we had together. I didn't exactly shout, but my tone was definitely sharper than I intended. Lily started to tear up and said that I was being selfish and that she was happy and that I should want her to be happy too. She said I wasn't being fair and that I was making it all about me. My ex didn't say much, but I could tell he was uncomfortable. The tension was unbearable, and I ended up leaving the dinner early. I apologized to them both later, but I still felt uneasy about the whole thing. It just felt like my feelings didn't matter at all to them. Since then, the group dynamic has been awkward. My friends are divided. Some of them say I was in the wrong for making it all about me, and that I should have been more supportive of their happiness. Others say I had every right to be upset, given the circumstances. Lily has barely talked to me, and when she does, it feels forced. She says I've ruined her engagement moment and made everything about me, and she's now questioning whether I can ever be happy for her. I feel like I'm being torn between my own feelings and the pressure from everyone else to just get over it. I'm still processing everything, but part of me can't shake the feeling that they moved on too quickly, and I was treated unfairly by both of them. So, AITA for calling out my best friend for getting engaged to my ex so soon after we broke up. Should I have just kept my feelings to myself? I don't want to lose both of them, but I also don't want to feel like I'm the bad guy here. AITA for refusing to let my sister move into my house after she got kicked out of her apartment. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Mia, 26F, who has always been a bit reckless. She's always been the type to dive headfirst into things without thinking about the consequences. For example, she dropped out of college after one semester, ended a relationship with a pretty stable guy because he was too boring, and just a month ago quit her job because it wasn't fulfilling. Needless to say, her life choices have been unconventional, and my parents, while loving and supportive, tend to turn a blind eye when things get difficult for her. They're of the mindset that she needs to figure things out on her own and don't really intervene. A few weeks ago, I got a call from Mia, and she was crying. Apparently, her landlord kicked her out of her apartment for reasons I wasn't fully aware of, but I suspect it had something to do with her inability to pay rent for the last couple of months. She told me she had nowhere to go and asked if she could move in with me temporarily while she figured things out. I don't know why, but I immediately felt a rush of anxiety. I've always been a bit of a control freak when it comes to my home. My space is my sanctuary. I've lived alone for the past 3 years after a rough breakup, and I've gotten used to the peace and quiet, the ability to do things when I want without worrying about anyone else's needs. But Mia sounded desperate, and I felt bad for her. I told her I'd think about it and get back to her. I called my mom for advice, and of course, she was all for it. It's just temporary, sweetie. She's your sister. You can't let her be out on the streets. After giving it some thought, I agreed to let Mia move in for a few weeks. I set some ground rules. She had to find a new job and apartment within that time, and she had to respect my space. I didn't want her living in my guest room indefinitely. The first couple of days were fine. She was a bit distant and didn't really speak much about her situation, but I figured she was processing everything. I was okay with that. But then things started getting a little off. Mia would leave dirty dishes in the sink, leave the TV on all night, and then complain when I'd ask her to turn it off. She started using my stuff without asking, my toiletries, my clothes, even my laptop. I had a pretty serious talk with her about respecting my boundaries and my space. She apologized, but nothing really changed. About a week into her stay, she mentioned she might not be able to find a place to live in the time I'd set. It's hard, you know? The rental market is crazy right now, she said. I might need to stay longer than we planned. I told her that I couldn't let her stay indefinitely, and she seemed fine with it at the time. But that was when I noticed something else. Mia's attitude started to shift. She became more demanding, asking me for money to help cover her expenses. She'd been trying to get a new job, but hadn't had any luck, so she couldn't pay her share of anything, not even groceries. I offered to help her look for job openings, but she said she didn't want to work just anywhere. She wanted something that fulfilled her. I told her that in the meantime, she'd have to contribute to the household in some way, even if that meant taking a job she wasn't crazy about for the time being. I didn't feel bad about this. She was an adult, and I didn't want to carry her while she figured things out. The tension really escalated when she started using my car without asking. One night, I was getting ready to go out with friends, and I couldn't find my car keys. After searching everywhere, I realized she had taken it to run errands. I was furious. I had specifically told her that my car was off limits unless I knew about it in advance. When she got back, I confronted her about it, and she acted like I was being unreasonable. "It's just a car, come on. You have another one," she said, like it wasn't a big deal. I tried to explain that it wasn't about the car. It was about respect. She didn't understand. After that, I had another conversation with her about her living situation and how we needed to come up with a concrete plan. She still didn't have a job, and it was clear she was just waiting for me to tell her what to do. It felt like she was putting all the pressure on me, and I was starting to feel taken advantage of. I didn't want to be the bad guy, but I was losing patience. A few days ago, Mia dropped a bombshell on me. She said she had been talking to a friend of hers who offered her a place to stay. The catch? The place was hours away, and she'd have to move there pretty much immediately. She said she was thinking about taking it, but would only leave if I was okay with it. I didn't know what to say. On one hand, I felt like I was finally getting some relief, but on the other, I knew this was her way of running away from responsibility. She didn't want to put in the effort to find her own place in the city, so she was going to rely on someone else to bail her out. I told her that I didn't think it was a good idea and that she needed to stay and figure things out here. We needed a plan, and I wasn't going to let her keep avoiding it. She didn't take that well. She got upset and accused me of not caring about her. "You're just like everyone else, trying to control my life," she said. "I thought you were supposed to be my family, not my prison warden." That's when I really lost it. I told her that I couldn't keep helping her if she wasn't going to take any responsibility for her life. I reminded her that I wasn't her mother, and I had my own life to live. I also told her that if she didn't have a plan in place by the end of the week, she needed to leave my house. Mia packed up her things and left a couple of days ago, and I haven't heard from her since. I feel conflicted. I know she's an adult and has to figure things out, but part of me wonders if I was too harsh. Was I too cold-hearted in kicking her out? AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me longer and setting boundaries about her behavior? AITA for telling my sister that her wedding was a mistake because of how she treated our family? So, this situation is a bit of a mess, and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong here, but here goes. My 29F sister, Amanda, 31F, got married last month in what was meant to be a small ceremony. I say small, but when you're inviting over 200 people, it's more like a full-scale event. I won't lie, I have always had a bit of a strained relationship with my sister. We've had our fair share of fights growing up, and she's always been a bit of a diva, but I tried to be supportive when she got engaged. I really did. However, what happened leading up to the wedding left me questioning everything. For context, my sister and I come from a fairly large family. Both sides of our parents are close-knit, and we've always been tight. Growing up, we used to attend every family gathering, holiday, and birthday party. I know it's cliché, but family meant a lot to us. My sister, though, always seemed to crave attention. She was the type to monopolize conversations, make everything about her, and then, when she didn't get the praise she wanted, she'd sulk. Over the years, I had to distance myself from her. I started focusing on my own life, building a career, and making my own family. It wasn't that I didn't love her, but her behavior was toxic and draining. Then she announced her engagement to her now husband, Jason. They seemed like a good match, and despite the drama, I was genuinely happy for her. She asked me to be her maid of honor, and I agreed, thinking that this might be a chance to repair our relationship. The wedding planning process was when things started to go downhill. I knew she had high expectations, but I didn't realize just how high they were. Amanda started dictating every aspect of the wedding and treating it like a contest. She demanded that I lose weight to fit into a specific dress, even though I was already a size 6. She told me that I needed to look better for the photos, which felt like a slap in the face. I've struggled with body image issues in the past, and this hit me hard. But it wasn't just the dress or her comments about my appearance. It was the little things, like how she insisted I attend every pre-wedding event, showers, dress fittings, rehearsals, even though I was working full-time and had a young daughter. My husband, Mark 32M, tried to step in and tell her I couldn't do it all, but she kept pushing, saying, "You're my maid of honor. You need to make it work." It didn't matter that I had my own life and responsibilities. Everything revolved around her. The final straw came a week before the wedding. I had already taken time off work to help with last-minute preparations, but when I showed up at the venue to help with decorations, Amanda pulled me aside and said, "You're not going to wear that to the wedding, are you?" I was wearing a simple black dress and cardigan. Nothing too fancy, but still respectful of the occasion. I thought I looked fine. Apparently, she thought it was too casual and demanded that I change. I was furious. She told me, "You're my maid of honor. You need to look amazing, like you're my equal." That's when I snapped. I told her I wasn't going to be treated like this anymore, that I wasn't her personal assistant, and that I had been putting her needs above my own for months. I reminded her that she hadn't even asked how I was doing or whether I was okay. It was all about her, her dress, her wedding, her plans, and she hadn't once considered how her demands were affecting me. She started crying and said I was ruining her big day, that I was being selfish and unsupportive. I tried to calm her down, but at that point, I was beyond caring. I said, "Maybe this wedding is a mistake. Maybe you should rethink this whole thing if this is how you treat the people who are supposed to love you the most." She was livid and told me that I was ungrateful and that I should just leave if I couldn't be happy for her. I walked out, feeling like I had just made a huge decision. The wedding went on without me as maid of honor, but I attended as a guest, just like the rest of the family. When it was all over, Amanda barely spoke to me for weeks. She posted on social media about how disappointing it was that I couldn't support her during the most important day of her life. Our parents were upset with me, saying I should have just sucked it up for her sake. They even told me that I shouldn't have said the things I did because it hurt Amanda's feelings. I'm now questioning whether I was in the wrong. On the one hand, I've tried to be there for her and maybe I should have been more patient and understanding. But on the other hand, I don't think I should have to sacrifice my own mental health and well-being just to satisfy her. I'm also still mad about how she treated me, constantly pushing me to the brink and acting like I was a prop in her big day rather than a person with my own needs and feelings. Am I the asshole for telling her that her wedding was a mistake? AITA for refusing to let my friend's daughter stay with me after her parents kicked her out, even though they say I'm the only safe option for her? So here's the situation. I, 30M, have been friends with Kate, 30F, since we were in high school. We were pretty close back then, but over the years, we grew apart a little as people do. I still consider her one of my closest friends, but I wouldn't say we talk every day or even every week. We catch up every couple of months, and that's usually enough. Kate got married to Sam, 32M, a few years ago. They've got a kid together, Emily, 17F, and things between them seemed pretty solid. But recently, things started to go downhill for Emily. From what Kate and Sam have told me, Emily's grades were slipping. She was hanging out with a bad crowd, and as they put it, rebelling against authority. Kate and Sam both said they've been trying everything to get Emily to turn things around, but it just wasn't working. Last week, I got a message from Kate asking if I could meet up for a coffee. I agreed, and we caught up for a bit. It started off like a normal conversation, but then Kate got pretty serious. She told me that Emily had come out as bisexual a couple of weeks ago, and that, after that, things really started to go downhill. Kate and Sam didn't take it well. They didn't outright reject Emily, but the tension was obvious. They couldn't understand why Emily felt the need to make a big deal about her sexuality, and there were a lot of awkward, hurtful conversations that happened after that. Kate explained that after some arguments, Emily decided to leave home. According to Kate, Emily was staying with some friends for a while, but had nowhere to go long-term. That's when Kate asked if Emily could stay with me for a bit. She said Emily needed a safe space, and since I had a spare room, it would be perfect. She even emphasized that Emily would be much safer staying with me than being stuck in a friend's place that wasn't very stable. Now, here's where things get tricky. I told Kate I need to think about it. I mean, I've known Emily for years, but we're not super close. We're not strangers, but she's also not someone I've spent a lot of one-on-one time with, you know? And the whole situation was so heavy. I also wasn't sure how I felt about the whole thing. Like, I get that Kate and Sam were struggling, but I didn't want to be dragged into their family drama, especially if it was going to cause tension between me and them. I explained to Kate that I needed time to think it through. She insisted that Emily didn't have anywhere else to go and that she'd be so grateful if I let her stay. She said Emily needed a place where she could feel accepted and not judged. I told her I'd think about it, but in my gut, I wasn't sure. The next day, Kate called me in a panic. She said she and Sam had kicked Emily out of the house. Apparently, they had a huge fight, and they were fed up with Emily's attitude. I don't know all the details, but Kate said they couldn't handle Emily anymore. She told me that now, Emily was staying at a friend's house, but wasn't really welcome there long-term. And then Kate made it clear that I was her only option. This is where I felt stuck. On one hand, I care about Emily, and I do believe she deserves a safe place. But on the other hand, I didn't want to get involved in their family issues. Also, I wasn't sure if I was equipped to handle the situation. I live alone, work full-time, and have my own responsibilities. I didn't want to make any promises I couldn't keep or risk making things awkward with Kate and Sam. I told Kate that I wasn't sure I could help. I explained that I wasn't in a position to take Emily in right now. I didn't feel like I could take on that kind of responsibility, especially when I wasn't sure how things would go with Emily living in my place. I also said that I wasn't comfortable getting in the middle of their family drama and that I didn't want to be put in the position of having to choose sides if things went south. Kate got really upset. She said I was being unreasonable and that I was her only hope. She said that Emily was lost and that I could be the one to help her. She even said, "You're the only person who gets her." I told Kate I wasn't the right person for the job, but she kept insisting, saying that Emily would be so much better off with me. I guess that didn't go over well, because Sam called me a few hours later. He was angry and accused me of abandoning Emily. He said that I was her only chance at a safe place and that I was letting her down. He made me feel like I was being a bad person for not helping her, even though I didn't feel like I had the resources to do so. He also said that I was judging them for how they were handling things and that I didn't understand what it was like to be a parent. Honestly, I felt really torn. I care about Emily, but I also didn't want to get involved in a situation that I felt unprepared for. I feel like if I had taken her in, things would have gotten complicated. I don't want to resent my friend or her family, but I also don't want to compromise my own well-being. After talking to some of my other friends about it, some think I did the right thing. They say it's not my responsibility to fix things for them, and that I shouldn't feel guilty for not getting involved. Others, however, think I should have stepped up for Emily and that I could have handled it. Now, I'm left feeling like I've disappointed both Kate and Sam. So, AITA for not letting my friend's daughter stay with me after her parents kicked her out. AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding after she invited my ex-husband as a guest. I, 30F, have been best friends with Lily, 31F, since we were kids. We grew up together, went to school together, and were inseparable during our teenage years. Over the years, we've had our ups and downs, but we've always had each other's backs. That said, we've also gone through some tough times, especially after my divorce from my ex-husband Mark, 32M, about 3 years ago. My marriage to Mark wasn't perfect, but we were together for 5 years before things fell apart. Mark and I had a lot of issues that eventually led to the end of the marriage, including trust issues, some emotional manipulation, and his inability to take responsibility for his actions. It wasn't an easy decision, but I ended it, and I felt relief once it was done. Lily, being my best friend, was there for me during the whole ordeal, and she really supported me when it came to getting out of that toxic relationship. Fast forward to now. Lily got engaged to James, 33M, a year ago, and the wedding is just around the corner. I was so happy for her at first, and I immediately agreed to be her maid of honor, even though my feelings about weddings are a little complicated after my divorce. I thought this would be a great chance to support my best friend, and it was an honor to be included in such an important day in her life. A couple of weeks ago, Lily sent out the official invitations for the wedding. I was excited to see the invite, and it was so beautiful. However, my excitement turned to confusion when I saw Mark's name on the guest list. I asked Lily about it, thinking it was some sort of mistake, but she just shrugged it off and said it was no big deal. I was shocked, to say the least. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable attending the wedding if Mark was going to be there. It was still difficult for me to be around him after everything that happened, and having to see him at such an important event felt like too much for me. Lily seemed to get a little defensive at first. She said that she and Mark were still on good terms and that they had even kept in touch after my divorce. I tried to explain that it wasn't about her and Mark, but about me and my own healing process. I've done a lot of work to move on from the trauma of my divorce, and the idea of being in the same room as him, especially at her wedding, felt like a step backward. I was clear that I was happy for her, but that I wouldn't be able to make it if he was invited. To my surprise, Lily didn't take my request well. She got upset and said that I was being dramatic and selfish. She told me that she couldn't uninvite Mark because they were still friends, and it wasn't fair for me to make her choose between me and him. She said that if I didn't want to attend, that was my choice, but she wasn't going to change the guest list for me. I was taken aback. I understood that she had her own relationship with Mark, but it didn't seem fair to me that she wouldn't even try to see things from my perspective. I told her that I wasn't asking her to choose, but I felt like it was unreasonable for her to expect me to be okay with him being there. I tried to explain that this wasn't about her or her wedding, but about me and how I was still healing. I also mentioned that this was supposed to be a special day for her, and I didn't want to bring any negative energy into it, especially considering how much my emotions about Mark were still tied to the whole wedding situation. We had a long argument about it, and it ended with me telling her that if she wouldn't respect my boundaries, I wouldn't be attending. She got really upset, said that I was making everything about myself, and accused me of ruining her big day. She also mentioned that I was being unfair by forcing her to make a choice, and that this could ruin our friendship. I left the conversation feeling like I had just lost my best friend. I genuinely didn't want to cause any tension, but I felt like she was being completely insensitive to my feelings and my needs. I reached out to a couple of mutual friends to get their take on it, and most of them seemed to side with Lily, saying that I was being too rigid and should just suck it up for the sake of her wedding. A few said that they understood where I was coming from, but that I should try to move on for her sake. Now, I'm questioning if I was being unreasonable. I understand that weddings are a big deal, but I feel like my own mental health and healing process should matter too. I've already been through a lot, and having to pretend everything is fine with Mark, especially at such an emotional event, feels like too much for me. So, AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding if my ex-husband is invited. AITA for telling my sister she couldn't bring her boyfriend to my wedding after he cheated on her, and try to blame me. I, 28F, have a sister, Carly, 25F, who has always been a bit dramatic for lack of a better word. Growing up, she always seemed to thrive on conflict, drama, and attention. She often tried to make herself the center of things and would get upset if someone didn't make her feel like she was the most important person in the room. But despite her flaws, I loved her, and we had a generally good relationship as adults. We'd always had our disagreements, but nothing serious. About a year ago, Carly started dating a guy, Mark, 27M. At first, I thought he was nice enough, but over time, I started noticing things that rubbed me the wrong way. He wasn't rude or outright cruel, but I could tell he was a little self-centered and that he didn't really care much about her beyond surface-level things. Carly seemed happy, though, so I didn't say anything. I figured if she was happy, that was what mattered. Fast forward to a few months ago, and Carly started acting strange. She became distant, and her social media posts became less frequent. I asked her about it, and she reluctantly confessed that she suspected Mark had been cheating on her. Apparently, she found some messages on his phone that seemed to imply he was seeing someone else. I wasn't surprised, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I encouraged her to confront him directly and see if they could work things out. The confrontation didn't go well. Carly told me later that when she confronted Mark, he initially denied everything, but then admitted to cheating on her multiple times. She was heartbroken, and I could see how much it affected her. I gave her space to process everything and try to be there for her, offering emotional support. After a few weeks, she told me that she had decided to end things with Mark and that she was working on healing. Now, here's where things get complicated. I'm getting married in a few months. It's a big event, and I've spent the last year planning everything meticulously. I've always wanted my wedding to be special, and I wanted everything to go smoothly. My fiancé, Ethan, 29M, has been amazing in helping me with the preparations. He's been very supportive, and we've been excited for this day for a long time. I was in the process of finalizing the guest list when Carly reached out to me. She asked if she could bring Mark as her plus one. I was taken aback. After everything that had happened, I didn't think it was a good idea. Mark had cheated on her, and even though she had forgiven him and was willing to try again, I felt like it was inappropriate for him to be invited to such an important day. I mean, he betrayed her trust and showed no respect for her, so why would I want someone like that at my wedding? I told her that I didn't think it was a good idea to invite Mark, and that I was uncomfortable with it. I explained that I had my reasons and that I hoped she understood. Carly, of course, did not take this well. She immediately became defensive, saying that I was overreacting and that it was her decision to forgive Mark and move forward with him. She said I was being unfair and that I should get over it because she was done with the whole cheating thing. I told her that I understood she had made her decision to stay with him, but I was still uncomfortable with him attending my wedding after everything he had done. She insisted that I was being a terrible sister and that I was trying to control her life. She said that if I didn't let her bring Mark, she would not attend the wedding at all. This felt like a threat to me, and it hurt. Over the next few days, Carly kept texting and calling me, trying to convince me to change my mind. She even brought up the fact that Ethan and Mark had briefly gotten along when they met a few months ago, which was true, but I never liked how Mark seemed to constantly undermine Ethan when they spoke. She said I was ruining our relationship by being so stubborn and selfish. Eventually, she told me that if I didn't invite him, she wouldn't come to my wedding at all. I was put in a really tough position. My wedding day was something I had been looking forward to for years, and I didn't want to risk losing my sister over something that seemed so trivial in comparison. But at the same time, I couldn't help feeling like Carly was trying to manipulate me into letting Mark attend. It felt like she was prioritizing her relationship with him over my feelings and the special day I had worked so hard to create. I couldn't shake the feeling that I would always resent her for bringing him there, especially considering everything he had done. I ended up telling her that I was sorry she felt that way, but that I had made my decision and I wouldn't be changing it. I explained that I loved her, but I needed her to respect my choice. I reminded her that she had every right to forgive Mark, but I had every right to decide who would be at my wedding. Carly hasn't spoken to me much since that conversation. She's been posting on social media about how heartbroken she is over my decision, and some of her friends have messaged me, telling me I'm being cruel and unreasonable. Some have even implied that I'm trying to control her life. I feel awful, but at the same time, I don't think I did anything wrong. I didn't want to invite someone who betrayed my sister's trust, and I think that's a reasonable boundary. So, AITA for telling my sister she couldn't bring her boyfriend to my wedding after he cheated on her, and try to blame me? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for kicking my sister out of my wedding after she showed up wearing white. 28F, am getting married in a few weeks to my fiancé, Josh, 30M, and it has been a pretty smooth journey considering how stressful wedding planning can be. We've been together for 5 years, and while we've had our ups and downs, we've always been on the same page when it comes to important things. Our families have had their minor clashes in the past, but overall, they've been supportive. That is, until recently. I've always had a close relationship with my sister, Amber, 27F. Growing up, we were best friends, and even as adults, we share a bond that feels unbreakable. We talk about everything, from personal problems to random funny stuff. But lately, I've been feeling like something is off, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm overreacting. The drama started when I began planning my wedding. As every bride does, I started thinking about the details, the flowers, the music, the dresses, and of course the guest list. I asked Amber to be my maid of honor, and she immediately said yes. We were both excited and even went shopping together to find the perfect dress for her. However, she made it clear early on that she would not wear anything too traditional and prefer to pick something she could wear again. I wasn't thrilled with her choice. She picked a very casual off-shoulder dress, but I didn't want to fight over it, so I let it slide. About a month ago, I had a small bridal shower at my mom's house. Amber was there, of course, and everything seemed fine. We had a good time chatting, eating, and opening gifts. But there was one moment that stood out to me. Amber was talking to my aunt, and I overheard her saying that she couldn't wait to be the real star of my wedding. I thought it was just a weird joke, but when I asked her about it later, she acted like I was being paranoid. Fast forward to this past weekend, when we had the wedding rehearsal dinner. My parents, Josh's parents, and a few other close family members were all invited. Everything was running smoothly until the moment Amber walked in. She was wearing a white dress. Now, I don't need to explain to anyone why that's a huge issue. White is traditionally reserved for the bride, and while some people may argue that rules around wedding attire are outdated, it's just one of those things that most people still respect. I was immediately shocked and confused. I thought maybe she had made a mistake, or maybe it was just the lighting in the room, but no. She was clearly wearing white, a knee-length dress that was far too formal for a rehearsal dinner, and she looked proud of it. I confronted her in private, asking her why she had chosen to wear white. She said it was a beautiful dress, and she didn't see the problem. When I reminded her that wearing white at a wedding is generally considered disrespectful, she got defensive. She said that she thought the tradition was dumb and that I was overreacting. I tried to explain that it wasn't about me being petty. It was about respecting my wishes and the tradition that I had always followed. She just laughed and said that I shouldn't be so uptight. At this point, I felt my patience wearing thin. I took a deep breath and told her that she either needed to change or leave. She looked at me with a mix of disbelief and irritation and asked if I was serious. I told her I was, and if she didn't want to respect the boundaries I'd set for my own wedding, she would have to leave. Amber left the rehearsal dinner in a huff, and I thought that was the end of it. I didn't want to make a big scene, but I felt like she was deliberately trying to undermine my big day. However, the situation didn't end there. She immediately called me the next day, angry that I had ruined her night. She told me that I was being a bridezilla and that I was too caught up in small, trivial details. She said I was being selfish and inconsiderate, and she even went as far as to say I was making the wedding all about me and not about family. I tried to explain again why it was important to me, but she just kept talking over me. Eventually, I told her that if she couldn't understand why this was a big deal, I didn't want her to be part of the wedding anymore. I felt like she wasn't respecting me or my role as the bride. She didn't respond to that, and now she's not speaking to me at all. Since then, my family has been split. My mom thinks I was too harsh and should have just let it go, but my dad agrees that Amber was out of line. My fiancé, Josh, has been supportive of me and says he understands why I did what I did, but he also thinks I should try to talk it out with Amber if possible. However, after everything, I'm not sure I want to. I'm hurt by the way she acted, and I'm honestly not sure I can trust her to respect my wishes on my wedding day. I feel like I'm stuck between wanting to have a peaceful wedding and standing up for myself, but I'm torn about whether I overreacted. Was I too harsh on Amber? AITA for kicking my sister out of my wedding after she showed up wearing white? AITA for confronting my sister after she intentionally ruined my wedding by bringing her ex as her plus one? So here's the deal. I, 29F, recently got married to my amazing husband, 30M, of about 6 months now. It was a beautiful, intimate ceremony, and we spent months planning everything to be just perfect. However, there's one thing that went terribly wrong, and it's all thanks to my sister, 26F. A bit of backstory. My sister and I have had a somewhat rocky relationship for years. We've had our fair share of arguments, and sometimes I feel like she's more of a competitor than a sibling, but I still try to make things work. We've always had a bit of a power struggle, especially when it comes to our family's attention. I've always been the responsible one, while she tends to seek attention and approval, sometimes in a way that feels like she's competing with me for the spotlight. Fast forward to my wedding planning. I had told my sister early on that she could invite a plus one. I didn't set many rules around it because I trust her judgment and assumed she would choose someone appropriate. Well, everything went smoothly until a couple of weeks before the wedding when I found out through a mutual friend that my sister had invited her ex-boyfriend, Daniel, to be her plus one. Now, for context, Daniel is the guy she had a very messy breakup with about a year ago. It was a huge drama with lots of tears, shouting matches, and some seriously bad blood between them. I couldn't believe it when I found out. My sister and Daniel had a very public and toxic breakup. Their relationship had a lot of highs and lows, and in the aftermath, she had been extremely bitter. When they broke up, she made it clear to everyone, including me, how much she hated him. I was confused, to be honest. Why would she invite him? She'd never mentioned even talking to him since the breakup. I decided to ask her about it. I called her and said, "Hey, I heard you invited Daniel to the wedding. I need to understand why, because this doesn't sit right with me." She was defensive from the start. "It's just a wedding. He's a friend now, and we're fine. You're being dramatic." I didn't buy it. I told her, "You're telling me you've made peace with him after all the drama, the insults, and the things you said about him? I just don't think it's appropriate, and it's making me uncomfortable." She laughed it off and insisted, "It's no big deal. You're making it a big deal." At that point, I was already feeling uneasy, but I didn't want to stir the pot too much. I didn't want to be that bride who micromanaged her guests. But honestly, something felt off. I talked to my fiancé about it, and he agreed it was weird, but he didn't think it was worth making a big issue out of it. I wanted to trust my sister's judgment, so I didn't bring it up to anyone else. Big mistake. The day of the wedding came, and everything was going great until it was time for the reception. As I'm greeting guests, I see my sister walking with Daniel, and my stomach just sank. Everyone knew who Daniel was, and his presence was like a weight on the entire event. People started whispering, looking uncomfortable, and I could sense that some of my guests were awkwardly trying to avoid any confrontations. I thought I could ignore it, but when my sister started making snide comments about how good it was to have old friends at the event, it started to eat at me. I went up to her and asked quietly, "Why did you bring him here? This isn't the place for this drama." She responded with, "You're so uptight. It's just a wedding. Calm down. He's not even making a scene." That's when I lost my temper. I snapped. "It's not about making a scene. It's about respecting me and my day. Why would you bring your ex, the one you hate and complained about for months, into my wedding? This is my moment, and you're trying to make it about you." She looked taken aback, but she didn't apologize. Instead, she tried to downplay it by saying, "I don't even care what you think. I'm having fun, and that's all that matters." I had reached my limit. I told her, "You've ruined enough things in my life, and now you're ruining my wedding. I'm asking you to leave with him. If you can't respect me today, then I don't need you here." The room went silent. My husband came over to me, trying to calm me down, but I was so furious I barely noticed. My sister, looking shocked and angry, immediately grabbed her purse and stormed off, Daniel following behind her. As she left, I heard her mutter something about me being a bridezilla, but honestly, I didn't care at that point. Later that night, my mom called me in tears, telling me that I was being too hard on my sister and that I needed to make amends. She said I'd ruined the family dynamic and embarrassed everyone at the wedding. My dad called me too, telling me I was being overly dramatic and should have just let it go. Apparently, my sister had been crying and telling everyone how hurt she was by what I did. I've since received messages from several family members, some who think I overreacted and others who support me. My sister hasn't spoken to me since the wedding, and while I do feel a bit guilty for making such a scene, I still think what she did was incredibly disrespectful. I just don't understand why she would want to create drama at my wedding, especially with someone she's had so much negative history with. So, AITA for confronting my sister and asking her to leave my wedding because she brought her ex as her plus one. I feel like I had every right to make my wedding a peaceful and drama-free event, but I'm wondering if I went too far. Should I have just sucked it up? AITA for confronting my sister about her treating my son differently because of his autism. I, 32M, have an older sister, Rachel, 34F, who is generally an amazing person. She's successful, social, and has always been there for me when I needed her. But recently, I've started to notice something that has been bothering me, and I'm not sure if I'm overreacting or if I really have a reason to be upset. I have a 7-year-old son, Alex, who has autism. He's high-functioning, but he has certain challenges that make social interactions and some daily activities difficult for him. He's incredibly smart, sweet, and kind-hearted, but like many children on the spectrum, he can sometimes get overwhelmed in certain social settings or struggle with sensory overload in places that others might not even think twice about. As a family, we've worked hard to support him. My wife and I have a pretty good system in place to help him navigate the world, and he's been thriving at school and in extracurricular activities, though it's a learning process for all of us. My sister, Rachel, doesn't have any children of her own. She's been pretty open about not wanting kids, and I respect that. I've always made sure that when we have family gatherings or holidays, I try to make things comfortable for Alex and make sure the environment is accommodating to his needs. Rachel, though, hasn't been as understanding, and lately, it's been getting under my skin. It started with small things at family events. Rachel will make comments about how Alex is so different from other kids his age, or he's really quiet, isn't he? But I brushed it off. I know she doesn't know a lot about autism, and I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. But the more I thought about it, the more her behavior seemed off to me. She would often make sure Alex was sitting at a separate table during big family dinners or encourage him to go play in the other room when there was a large group. She'd often call his behavior weird in a dismissive tone, and it would make me feel uncomfortable. But I never said anything because, again, I didn't want to cause a scene. Then, things escalated last week. We had a family gathering at my parents' house for Thanksgiving, and everything started off fine. Alex was being his usual self, quiet, focused on his iPad, and not engaging in the typical chaos of family events. But Rachel, who had been drinking a little bit more than usual, started making more pointed comments about him. At one point, she said, "I don't understand why you're so protective of him. He's just a kid. He's not that special." I froze. Everyone at the table went silent. My wife was visibly upset, and I could feel my blood boiling. I had heard her say things before, but this was just too much. I asked Rachel to step outside with me to talk, and when we were in the yard, I asked her what she meant by that comment. She seemed confused, like she didn't even realize how hurtful her words had been. I explained that Alex was not just a kid. He had autism, and that means he faces challenges that other kids don't. I told her that the way she treated him, constantly separating him from the group and dismissing his behavior, was making him feel excluded and ashamed of who he was. I also told her that it hurt me to see my own sister, someone I've always admired, treat my son like he was less than. Rachel got defensive and told me that I was overreacting. She said she didn't understand why I was so sensitive about it, and that Alex needed to learn to fit in with the family like everyone else. She even implied that I was coddling him and that it wasn't healthy for him to be treated differently. I was speechless. I've never been one to raise my voice or get aggressive, but I couldn't contain myself in that moment. I told her she had no idea what it was like to live with a child who had autism, and that maybe she should educate herself before making such hurtful comments. I walked away and went back inside. The rest of the evening was tense. Rachel avoided me and my family for the remainder of the night, and there were a few awkward moments where she would try to make small talk with others, but everyone could feel the tension. After Thanksgiving, Rachel texted me, apologizing for her comments, but insisting that she didn't see the issue with how she was acting. She claimed she had just never known how to deal with Alex, and that she didn't want to make me feel bad. But I was still upset. I tried to explain to her that it's not about me feeling bad. It's about how her behavior affects my son, who already has enough struggles to deal with. Now, a few of my friends are telling me that I overstepped by confronting her the way I did. They say that Rachel probably didn't mean to be hurtful, and that I should have been more patient in explaining things to her instead of getting emotional. But I can't help but feel like this is something I had to address. I don't want my son to grow up thinking that people are allowed to treat him like he's less than just because of his diagnosis. I'm struggling with whether or not I handled this the right way. Was I too harsh? Should I have approached the conversation differently? Or did Rachel really need to hear what I said, even if it meant putting our relationship on the line? I don't want to cause drama in the family, but I also don't want Alex to feel unsupported by the people who are supposed to love him unconditionally. Am I the asshole here for confronting her the way I did? AITA for refusing to give my stepdaughter my inheritance because of her behavior? I, 45M, recently inherited a considerable sum of money from my late father. He passed away unexpectedly a few months ago, and while I miss him dearly, it was clear that he was thoughtful about how he wanted to provide for his family after he was gone. The inheritance wasn't just cash. It was also a significant amount of property, including a vacation home and some valuable family heirlooms. My father had always been very close to me and made sure to express how he wanted everything handled. Now, here's where things get complicated. I've been married to my wife, Alice, 38F, for the past 6 years. She has a daughter, Emma, 14F, from a previous relationship. Alice and I have a pretty solid marriage, and we get along well for the most part, but Emma and I have never been close. I've tried to bond with her, but she's always been distant and even hostile toward me. I don't know if it's because of her relationship with her biological father or if it's just her personality, but she's always had an attitude. A few weeks ago, Alice and I were discussing how we would divide up my inheritance. The money was a huge blessing, but it also came with some responsibility, as I knew there were people in my extended family who might expect some help or compensation for things my father had promised them. After much discussion, Alice suggested that we share a portion of my inheritance with Emma, since she is technically part of the family. At first, I was hesitant. I know it sounds petty, but I was concerned about how she would use the money. Emma had been acting out recently, sneaking out, failing school, being rude to both Alice and me, and making no effort to contribute to the household. My father had made it clear that the inheritance was for my children, and I have 2 of my own, Lily, 10F, and Noah, 7M. My kids are a priority for me, and I felt like it wouldn't be fair to give Emma a large share when she didn't show any respect for me or my family. After I explained my concerns to Alice, she got upset. She argued that it was unreasonable to withhold something that was rightfully Emma's just because I didn't like her behavior. Alice said that I should be more understanding of the fact that Emma has had a tough time adjusting to our family dynamic, especially after her father and I got married. I get it, but the way she acted toward me made it hard for me to just overlook everything. Things started to escalate when Alice brought the topic up during a family dinner. Emma, overhearing us, asked if she would get any of the inheritance. I told her that I was still thinking it over, but she insisted that she deserved something because it's only fair. The way she said it rubbed me the wrong way, and I ended up saying, "You don't just get things because you think you deserve them. Respect and kindness have to come first." Emma immediately started crying and ran off to her room, slamming the door behind her. Alice looked at me like I just kicked a puppy. She told me I was being cruel and that Emma was just a child that didn't understand the complexities of adult relationships. She went upstairs to comfort Emma, and I could hear them talking quietly, but I wasn't sure what was being said. The next day, things were still tense. Emma started avoiding me completely, and Alice started getting angry, claiming I was making Emma feel unloved and unimportant. Alice even suggested that I should give Emma the vacation home since she loved it so much and spent a lot of time there with her biological father before we married. I was stunned by this. That vacation home was something I cherished. It was a place I spent with my father, and I had been looking forward to passing it down to my own children one day. I tried to reason with Alice, but she wasn't hearing it. She said that I was being selfish and that I was punishing Emma for things she couldn't control. I argued that if Emma was truly grateful, she would start showing some respect and appreciation for the family and not just expect things handed to her. I told Alice that if Emma's behavior didn't improve, I would consider setting aside the inheritance for my kids and leaving Emma out of it. Alice accused me of trying to punish her daughter for things that were beyond her control. That's when the real fallout happened. Alice suggested that maybe we should rethink our marriage if I couldn't be more supportive of Emma. She said that I was being unfair and that I wasn't considering the bigger picture. She told me she couldn't be married to someone who didn't care about her daughter's future. I was floored. This felt like an ultimatum. Either I give in and give Emma part of the inheritance, or Alice would consider our marriage over. I've been agonizing over this for days. I want to do what's right by my wife, but at the same time, I don't want to reward behavior that I find disrespectful and dismissive of our family. My children are my priority, and I can't just ignore the fact that Emma's attitude has created so much tension in our house. So, AITA for refusing to give Emma my inheritance because of her behavior? Should I just give in and avoid causing more conflict? Or do I stand my ground and risk damaging my marriage? I honestly don't know what to do anymore. I just want to do what's best for everyone. But it feels like no matter what I choose, someone will be upset. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she uninvited me due to my toxic behavior. Okay, so this is a bit of a long story, but I need to know if I'm in the wrong here. I, 27F, have a sister, Jenny, 25F, who's getting married in a few weeks. We've always had a complicated relationship, but up until recently, I thought things were improving. The issue started years ago when Jenny got engaged to her now fiancé, Mark, 28M. I was excited for her, but things quickly became strained due to my brother-in-law's, Mark's, family dynamics. Mark comes from a very traditional, conservative family. His parents, especially his mom, have always been extremely critical of anyone who isn't exactly like them, and they've made no effort to hide their judgmental attitudes toward me. I've never been a fan of their passive-aggressive comments and their tendency to talk down to me, but I've always tried to avoid confrontation for Jenny's sake. For context, I'm a bit different from the rest of the family. I've always been a little more liberal, a little more outspoken, and definitely more casual in terms of my appearance and lifestyle. I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not, and I'm also not going to sit in the background and nod when someone makes an awful comment. That's just not me. Jenny's family was kind enough to invite me to their events early on, but I always felt like an outsider. At family gatherings, I would get ignored or treated like a second-class citizen, especially by Mark's mom, who would always make these offhand comments about my clothes, my career, I work in marketing, and even my personal life choices. Things really started to take a turn at Jenny's bridal shower. I tried to attend, mostly for Jenny's sake, but the entire event felt like one big passive-aggressive jab at me. The whole time, Mark's mom was making subtle digs like, "It's so refreshing to see someone who knows how to dress appropriately for a formal event," or, "You must be so lucky to have a job that doesn't require much effort." I tried to ignore it, but I could feel my blood pressure rising. By the end of the shower, I just had enough and snapped at her, telling her that her condescending remarks weren't welcome, and that if she had a problem with me, she could say it to my face instead of making rude comments behind my back. I know that wasn't the best way to handle things, but I was exhausted from constantly biting my tongue. Jenny didn't speak to me for the rest of the day, and I thought that would be the end of it. But then things escalated. Jenny called me the next day, crying, saying that I had ruined the bridal shower. She told me that Mark's mom was deeply hurt by what I said, and that it caused a huge rift in their relationship. I apologized for snapping, but I also explained that I wasn't going to sit there and let someone berate me in front of a room full of people. Jenny told me that I needed to do better and keep the peace for the sake of her wedding. I agreed to try, but deep down, I was starting to feel like I was being asked to sacrifice my dignity for the sake of keeping the peace. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. I received an invitation to Jenny's wedding, but with a note attached that was odd. It read, "We would love for you to be there, but if you plan to cause any more drama, please don't come. The day is about love and celebration, not conflict. Please respect our wishes and keep any negative energy to yourself." This felt like a direct shot at me. I hadn't caused any drama at the bridal shower. I just stood up for myself when I'd been disrespected. And now I was being painted as the villain in their narrative. I tried to talk to Jenny about it, but she was cold and distant. She said I needed to reflect on my actions, and that if I couldn't be mature about the situation, I should stay away. I felt humiliated and betrayed. I've been nothing but supportive of her over the years, and now I was being pushed aside for the sake of appeasing her fiancé's overbearing family. I was devastated, but I also realized that maybe this was the moment when I needed to put my foot down. I wrote her a message saying that I wouldn't be attending the wedding. I told her that I understood her need to please everyone, but that I wasn't going to be part of an event where I wasn't wanted and where I would be expected to just grin and bear it while being belittled. I told her that I loved her, but that I couldn't continue to be treated like I was the problem when I had only ever stood up for myself and for what was right. She responded angrily, saying that I was being childish and that I was making this about myself instead of celebrating her special day. She also said that I had ruined her wedding by choosing not to attend and that I was showing my true colors. I felt hurt and confused, but I stuck to my decision. Since then, we haven't really spoken. She's been posting wedding planning updates all over social media, and I see her tagging everyone but me. It's like I'm invisible to her now. Now, I'm questioning if I was too harsh. I get that it's her wedding and she wants everything to go smoothly, but I don't think I should have to pretend to be someone I'm not just to keep the peace. I also don't think it's fair that I'm being treated like the villain for speaking up, but I can't shake the feeling that I might be the one in the wrong. AITA for refusing to go to my sister's wedding after she uninvited me over my toxic behavior. AITA for telling my sister that I won't attend her wedding if she invites our estranged mother. I, 29F, have a sister, 32F, who has been a huge part of my life. We've always been close, even though we've had our share of disagreements, like any siblings. But there's one thing that has always been a major source of tension between us: our relationship with our mother. Our mom, 54F, has been emotionally and mentally abusive toward both of us for years, and while I've cut ties with her completely, my sister still has a complicated relationship with her. This has been a point of contention between us for as long as I can remember. Growing up, our mom was cold and demanding. She would constantly belittle us, make us feel unworthy of any love or praise, and then turn around and guilt-trip us whenever we needed space or try to stand up for ourselves. I was a sensitive child, so I internalized a lot of her harsh words. My sister, on the other hand, became more of a people-pleaser and tried to maintain a relationship with our mom, despite her treatment. Over the years, things only got worse. Our mom was never physically abusive, but her emotional cruelty was more than enough to make me step back from her. I was 21 when I decided I couldn't take it anymore and cut her out of my life. My sister didn't agree with my decision, but understood why I did it. However, she kept in contact with our mom and even started spending more time with her as I distanced myself. Fast forward to now, my sister is getting married in a few months. She's been with her fiancé for 5 years, and they're planning a beautiful ceremony. I've been helping her with a lot of the wedding planning, and we've been spending more time together than usual. Last week, she called me to tell me the big news. She's invited our mom to the wedding. I was shocked, to say the least. I thought she knew where I stood on the issue, and I was under the impression that my sister had started to realize how toxic our mom is too. She told me she wanted our mom there because family is important and that she thought it would be a healing moment for everyone. I immediately felt sick to my stomach. I asked her if she understood what inviting our mom would mean for me, how it would force me to be around someone who has emotionally damaged me for so long. I reminded her that I've spent years working on healing and that being in the same room as our mom would trigger a lot of painful memories and feelings. My sister seemed to brush this off, claiming that I was overreacting and that I shouldn't let the past get in the way of her happiness. I tried to explain to her that it wasn't just about the past. It was about my mental health, that being around our mom, especially at a moment like her wedding, would take away from the joy of the day for me. She said that I should just move on, and that it wasn't like our mom was going to do anything to ruin the event. I disagreed with her, and I told her that, to me, it wasn't worth the risk. I also told her that I would not attend the wedding if our mom was going to be there, because I couldn't sit through an event where I'd be forced to interact with someone who has caused me so much harm. At this point, my sister got upset. She accused me of being selfish and ruining her special day. She said I was making everything about me and that I needed to let go of my grudge. I tried to explain that this wasn't a grudge. It was a boundary I needed for my own well-being. But she didn't seem to understand. She kept insisting that I was taking this too personally and that it was just a wedding, not a therapy session. We went back and forth for a while, but I stuck to my guns and I told her that, unless our mom wasn't invited, I wouldn't be attending. I've since gotten a few messages from our other family members, some of whom are on my side and some who are on my sister's side. Some have said they understand where I'm coming from and that they respect my boundaries. But others have said I'm being unreasonable and that family should come together for such an important event. The thing is, I feel like I've been more than reasonable in this situation. I've given my sister years of space to figure out her own relationship with our mom, and I've never told her who she could or couldn't invite to her life events. But this is different. This is my mental health, and I don't feel like I should have to sacrifice my own peace to accommodate someone who has caused me so much pain. I'm honestly feeling really torn about the whole situation. Part of me feels like I'm being incredibly harsh, and that maybe I should just swallow my pride for the sake of my sister's happiness. But another part of me knows that if I do that, it would feel like I'm letting my mom win. And I don't want to do that. I've spent so long unlearning the toxic things she taught me, and I'm not willing to let her back into my life in any capacity, especially not during such a significant moment. I'm trying to respect my sister's decision, but at the same time, I don't think it's fair for her to ask me to compromise my boundaries for the sake of a family reunion that I never wanted in the first place. So, AITA for telling my sister I won't attend her wedding if our mom is invited. AITA for not letting my sister-in-law stay at my house after she insulted my family. I'm in my late 20s, and my wife, 27, and I have been married for 3 years. I love her to death, and we have a pretty solid relationship. Her family, however, is a different story. They're nice enough, but we don't really see eye to eye on a lot of things. Her older sister, Emily, 31, has always been a bit of a wild card in the family. She's loud, opinionated, and always seems to stir the pot. I've learned to tolerate her over the years, but there are some things I just can't overlook. To give some context, we live in a medium-sized suburban house. It's not huge, but it's a good size for the two of us. We have a guest room, which we've always opened up to family when they visit. Normally, when someone comes to stay, it's for a couple of days or even a weekend. It's never been a huge deal, and we enjoy having family over. A few weeks ago, Emily reached out to us, asking if she could stay at our place for a while. She had recently gone through a rough breakup and was looking for somewhere to crash while she figured things out. My wife, being the kind person she is, immediately said yes and told me about it. I wasn't thrilled, but I didn't make a big deal out of it. I knew it was temporary, so I just let it go. The first few days went fine. Emily mostly stayed in her room and didn't cause much trouble. But as the days went by, things started to take a turn. She began making snide comments about our house, our lifestyle, and our finances. At first, I thought she was just venting, but it got to the point where it was starting to feel personal. One evening, we were sitting at the dinner table, and Emily brought up the topic of money. She asked me how much I made, which I thought was weird, but didn't say anything. When I told her, she scoffed and said, "Wow, that's it. I honestly thought you were doing better for yourself. I mean, it's not like you're living in some mansion or anything." I could feel myself getting irritated, but I didn't want to make a scene. My wife was sitting right next to me, and I could tell she was uncomfortable too. Emily kept going, though, saying things like, "I don't understand how you're still living in this tiny place. I'd be embarrassed to have friends over here." At that point, I couldn't take it anymore. I told her that if she didn't like the house, she was free to leave and find somewhere else to stay. Emily laughed and said, "I was just being honest. But whatever, I'll leave if it makes you feel better." The next few days were tense. Emily seemed to get more and more passive-aggressive, making comments about the way we live and the way we spend our money. One evening, she even criticized my wife for buying organic food, saying it was a waste of money. She kept insisting that we should be more like her, living in the real world, which I found condescending and rude. My wife was getting upset, too. She told me that she was trying to make things work, but Emily was pushing her limits. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't want to cause drama. So I tried to talk to Emily one-on-one and ask her if everything was okay. She immediately got defensive and told me I was being sensitive. Things really blew up a few days ago. Emily had been complaining about not having a car, so I offered to lend her mine for a few days. I figured it was a nice gesture, and it wasn't like I needed it that much. But when she got back, she had the audacity to complain that I didn't have a better car. She said, "I can't believe I'm driving around this old thing. You're doing well enough. Why can't you get a nicer car?" That was the final straw. I snapped and told her she needed to leave. I told her that if she couldn't be respectful in our home, she could find somewhere else to stay. Emily was stunned and started crying, saying I was being unfair and cruel. She accused me of being rude and selfish and said I should have been more supportive of her during her breakup. I know my wife feels torn about the whole thing. She wants to support her sister, but she also doesn't want to have to choose between her sister and me. We've been talking about it for days, and I've told her I don't want to let someone stay at our house who constantly insults our way of life and makes me feel uncomfortable. Now Emily is furious with me, and my wife is upset because she doesn't want to lose her sister. I feel like I've done the right thing by setting boundaries, but I also understand that my wife is caught in the middle. My in-laws have been texting me, telling me I was out of line and that I shouldn't have kicked Emily out when she was going through such a tough time. So, AITA for not letting my sister-in-law stay at my house after she insulted my family and me. I honestly just want to maintain some peace in our home. AITA for not inviting my sister to my wedding after everything she's done. I, 28F, am getting married to the love of my life, Dan, 32M, in 2 months. We're both excited, and honestly, we've been through a lot to get to this point. My family's excited too, mostly, except for my sister, Carla, 30F. Carla and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, I was the quieter, more reserved one, while she was the loud, outgoing, and often the life of the party. Our parents always compared us, and while they never meant to pit us against each other, it created a lot of tension. She would always be the center of attention, and I felt like I was just in her shadow. I was okay with that for the most part, but as we grew older, things began to shift. When I met Dan, I thought things might change between Carla and me. I thought she might be happy for me, especially after everything I had gone through. I've always struggled with self-esteem, and Dan has been a rock for me. He supported me when I got out of an emotionally abusive relationship in my early 20s, and he's the reason I've started to believe in myself. Our relationship with Dan has been steady, loving, and, most importantly, healthy. But Carla didn't exactly react to our relationship the way I hoped. From the moment I introduced her to him, it was clear something was off. She would make passive-aggressive comments about how perfect Dan was, how lucky I was to find someone like him. I brushed it off at first, thinking it was just jealousy or something she would get over. Then came the bachelorette party. I had been planning this for months. I wanted a small, intimate gathering with just a few of my close friends and family. Carla was invited, of course, but from the moment we started planning, she started taking over. She was suggesting extravagant ideas for the event that would completely deviate from what I had in mind. When I tried to assert myself and say, "No, I just want a quiet weekend getaway with the girls," she pouted and said, "You're so boring. Can't you just have some fun for once?" I compromised a bit, allowing her to pick a venue, and, of course, it turned into a whole thing. Carla invited all these people I barely knew, friend from high school I hadn't talked to in years, and even some of her co-workers I'd never met. The weekend was full of drama, and I ended up having to play peacemaker. At one point, I caught Carla in the bathroom, making snide remarks about how unlucky I was to be marrying someone so dull. It made me question everything. Why was she so hell-bent on sabotaging this for me? But that was just the beginning. After the bachelorette party, the situation got worse. Carla started making it clear that she didn't approve of Dan. At family gatherings, she'd tell everyone about how weird he was or how he didn't fit into our family dynamic. And then came the ultimate betrayal. A few weeks ago, Carla had an argument with me where she said, "You deserve so much better than him, but I guess you're too scared to be alone." That comment hit me like a ton of bricks. It felt like she was trying to tear down something I had built so carefully. I tried to have a conversation with her about it. I asked her what was going on and why she couldn't just be happy for me. Her response was that she didn't think Dan was the right match for me and that she just wanted me to be happy. But I know Carla, and I knew that wasn't the real reason. She was jealous of how much attention and love I was getting from him. She was used to being the center of attention, and now she felt like she was being overshadowed. At this point, I was done. I didn't need her negativity in my life. I spoke to Dan about it, and he agreed that Carla's behavior was out of line. It was clear to both of us that she was trying to create drama and get in the way of our relationship. So, I made the decision not to invite her to the wedding. The decision wasn't easy, and I tried to justify it to myself in various ways. I told myself that I wasn't being unreasonable, that I wasn't going to let her behavior ruin my big day. I sent her a message explaining that due to her actions and the tension between us, I didn't feel comfortable having her at the wedding. She was furious and accused me of being a spoiled brat and not valuing family. She said I was making a mistake and that I would regret it for the rest of my life. Our parents have also weighed in. They say I should invite her because she's family, but I feel like family isn't just about blood. It's about respect and support, neither of which Carla has shown me lately. My mom even cried when I told her I wasn't inviting Carla, saying that this was going to cause a rift in the family that we'd never recover from. But I can't keep enabling Carla's toxic behavior just to keep the peace. I've already spent years doing that, and it hasn't done me any favors. Now, the rest of my family is upset with me. Some of them are saying I'm being too harsh, that it's just a wedding and I should let the drama slide. Others are more on my side, saying that Carla's treatment of me is unacceptable and I shouldn't have to put up with it. I've been second-guessing myself for a while now, wondering if I should just give in and invite her for the sake of family unity. But deep down, I feel like I would be compromising my happiness for the sake of avoiding a confrontation. I want my wedding to be a joyful, positive occasion, not a battleground for family drama. So, Reddit, AITA for not inviting my sister to my wedding after everything she's done? Should I just suck it up and include her to keep the peace, or have I made the right choice? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.